Laundry day blues. The telltale thump, thump, thump sputtered into silence mid-cycle. Lily groaned, a sound muffled by the damp towel draped over her face. She'd been hoping a little aromatherapy eucalyptus-scented steam would banish the writer's block currently cemented to her brain. Instead, she got a broken dryer. She yanked open the dryer door. A sad, half-tumbled mass of clothes greeted her, lukewarm and smelling faintly of despair. Lily prodded the sodden heap. Definitely broken. Bill, her neighbor, was handy. Maybe too handy. She mentally replayed their near-kiss in her kitchen, the lingering scent of motor oil and something else, something undeniably charged. Asking him for help felt like throwing gasoline onto a smoldering fire. No more sparks with Bill. Lily surveyed the looming laundry situation. A wicker basket overflowed in the corner of her bedroom, threatening to spill its contents onto the already cluttered floor. Another pile, mostly jeans and t-shirts, sat slumped against the radiator in the hallway. She'd been putting it off, telling herself she'd tackle it tomorrow. Tomorrow, apparently, had arrived with a vengeance and a defunct dryer. The laundromat. The word tasted like stale coffee and fluorescent lights. Lily shuddered. She envisioned the scene: sticky floors, a cacophony of whirring machines, and the ever-present risk of sock theft. Then there were the laundromat regulars, a motley crew she'd encountered during previous emergencies: Mrs. Gable, who narrated her entire life story loudly while folding fitted sheets; the teenager with the perpetually tangled headphones, blasting music that vibrated through the metal chairs; and the man who always seemed to be meticulously sorting his socks by shade of gray. The thought of lugging her overflowing baskets down 3 flights of stairs, only to navigate the laundromat gauntlet, was enough to make her want to declare all her clothes officially vintage and start wearing paper bags. Lily sank onto her bed, defeated. Maybe she could just buy all new clothes. A minimalist wardrobe of exclusively black turtlenecks. No, that was ridiculous. And expensive. She poked at the mountain of laundry. There were her favorite worn-out jeans, the ones with the perfect rip in the knee. Her lucky riding socks, patterned with tiny avocados. The soft, oversized sweater she wore when she needed a hug, since actual hugs were in short supply lately. Each item held a memory, a tiny fragment of her life woven into its fibers. A sigh escaped her lips. Fine. The laundromat it was. But not today. Today she would wallow. Tomorrow she would face the music and the dryer sheets. She'd just have to figure out how to avoid Bill, the neighborly handyman. The rhythmic snip of hedge clippers drifted through Lily's open kitchen window, a sound both comforting and subtly mocking. Bill Johnson, her next-door neighbor, was out in his yard again, transforming unruly bushes into perfect, geometric shapes. She'd watched him over the past few weeks, marveling at his green thumb and the quiet precision of his movements. He always wore the same faded blue overalls and a worn-out John Deere cap, a picture of capable competence. Lily sighed, staring at the overflowing laundry basket beside her dryer. The blasted thing had decided to give up the ghost yesterday, leaving her with a mountain of damp towels and a rapidly diminishing supply of clean socks. She'd poked around inside, of course, consulting YouTube videos and feeling increasingly helpless. A tangled mess of wires and a suspicious burning smell had quickly convinced her that this was a job for someone who actually knew what they were doing. Bill. The thought sent a nervous flutter through her stomach. She barely knew him, just polite waves across the fence and the occasional brief conversation about the weather. He seemed nice enough, a bit old-fashioned perhaps, but undeniably handy. Everyone on the street knew Bill Johnson could fix anything. But asking for help, it felt like admitting defeat. Lily prided herself on her independence. She'd always tackled problems head-on, figuring things out for herself. Besides, there was something about Bill's gaze, even from a distance, that made her self-conscious. A warmth that hinted at something more than just neighborly kindness. She chewed on her lip, watching him prune a rose bush with meticulous care. The sun glinted off his silver hair, making him look younger than she knew he was. Maybe she could just call a repairman. But the thought of a stranger traipsing through her house, judging her slightly chaotic life, was even less appealing. Taking a deep breath, Lily grabbed her phone and typed a quick text to her friend, Chloe. Dryer's dead. Thinking of asking Bill for help. Wish me luck. Chloe's immediate response, go for it. He's single, cute, and can fix things. What's not to love? Lily rolled her eyes, but a small smile played on her lips. Armed with Chloe's questionable encouragement, she marched out the back door, and across the small patch of grass separating their houses. As she approached, Bill straightened up, wiping his brow with a red bandana. Lily, good morning. Something I can do for you? His eyes were a warm hazel, crinkling at the corners as he smiled. Hi, Bill, she said, her voice a little higher than usual. I was wondering if you might have a minute. She gestured vaguely towards her house. My dryer, it's not working. His smile widened. A dryer, eh? I've tinkered with a few of those in my day. What seems to be the trouble? Lily hesitated, suddenly feeling foolish. I don't really know. It just stopped heating up. I tried to look at it myself, but I think I made it worse. Well, no harm in taking a look, Bill said, setting down his clippers. Let's go see what we can do. He gestured towards her house with a calloused hand, and Lily found herself following him, a mix of apprehension and a strange, unexpected hope swirling within her. Tools and tales. The slam of Bill's truck door echoed up the driveway, followed by a cheerful whistle. He strode towards the porch, toolbox swinging in one hand, a mischievous glint in his eyes. Ready to wrestle with a stubborn appliance, Lily. He was wearing a faded blue t-shirt that stretched attractively across his shoulders, and jeans dusted with what looked like potting soil. My stomach did a little flutter kick. As I'll ever be, I replied, trying for nonchalant and probably missing the mark by a mile. The dryer stood accusingly in the laundry room, its metallic bulk filling the small space. Bill surveyed it with the focused gaze of a doctor examining a patient. All right, let's see what we've got here, he said, kneeling to peer behind it. First things first, power off. Wouldn't want to get any unwanted jolts. He unscrewed the back panel with practiced ease, the rhythmic click of the screwdriver a surprisingly soothing sound. I hovered nearby, feeling a little useless. So what exactly do you think is wrong? I asked. Could be a few things, he replied, his voice muffled by the dryer's innards. Most likely the belt, though. They have a tendency to wear out after a while. He pulled out a handful of lint, grimacing. And this doesn't help. Always clean your lint trap, Lily. Fire hazard and all that. I blushed. Duly noted. I grabbed a trash bag and started scooping out the remaining lint bunnies. Bill continued to dismantle the dryer, pulling out wires and components with surprising dexterity. Reminds me of the time I tried to fix my grandma's radio, he chuckled. Took the whole thing apart, couldn't put it back together. She ended up listening to the news through a tin can and a string for a week. I laughed. A tin can and a string. Seriously? I swear. Grandma Johnson was a resourceful woman. She even tried to blame it on gremlins. He winked. Said they were messing with the tubes. He pulled out a long, black rubber belt, cracked and frayed. Aha! There's your culprit. He held it up like a trophy. See, Lily. Even machines get tired sometimes. Need a little TLC. As he worked, replacing the belt with a new one, he told me about his days working on a farm, about rescuing a stray kitten that now ruled his house, about the time he accidentally entered a chili cook-off and won with a recipe he found online. Each story was delivered with a twinkle in his eye and a genuine warmth that made me feel comfortable. At ease. He tightened the last screw, stood back, and dusted off his hands. All right, let's give her a whirl. I loaded a damp towel into the dryer and pressed the start button. The machine whirred to life, humming smoothly. Relief washed over me. You're a lifesaver, Bill. I was starting to think I'd be hanging my clothes out to dry all winter. He grinned. Happy to help, Lily. Besides, he added, his voice dropping a notch, gives me a chance to spend some time with my favorite neighbor. Lingering gazes. The scent of petunias hung heavy in the air, a sweet counterpoint to the earthy aroma rising from Bill's newly tilled garden. He was humming, a low rumble that vibrated through the shared fence and tickled at Lily's awareness. She was supposedly sorting through the tangled mess of herbs on her patio, but her focus kept drifting towards him. He straightened, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his hand, and turned towards her. Lily quickly busied herself with a handful of oregano, feigning intense concentration. When she chanced a peek, she caught him looking at her. Not just a casual glance, but a long, lingering gaze filled with something soft and undefinable. His eyes crinkled at the corners, and a ghost of a smile played on his lips. Lily's heart did a little skip, a clumsy two-step that threw her off balance. She almost dropped the oregano. Everything all right over there, Lily? He called out, his voice warm and laced with amusement. Fine, fine, she mumbled, her cheeks burning. She snipped the oregano with unnecessary force. Just battling the jungle. He chuckled, a rich, genuine sound. I saw your laundry hanging out earlier. Quite the collection of socks. Any chance you're running a sock orphanage? Lily groaned inwardly. Her mismatched sock collection was a source of constant embarrassment. They multiply when I'm not looking, she retorted, trying for a light tone. It's a sock conspiracy, I tell you. A conspiracy, huh? Maybe I should invest in some sock traps. He leaned against the fence, his eyes sparkling with mischief. I'm pretty good with traps. The air crackled with something more than just playful banter. Lily felt a strange heat rise within her, a disconcerting flutter in her stomach. It wasn't just gratitude for his help with the dryer, or neighborly kindness. This was different. She met his gaze directly, trying to decipher the expression in his eyes. Was it her imagination, or was there a definite spark there? A hint of something more. He held her gaze for another beat, the silence stretching between them, thick with unspoken possibilities. Then he straightened up, breaking the connection. Well, I should get back to my petunias before they start plotting against me too. He winked. See you later, Lily. As he turned back to his garden, Lily's breath hitched. She watched the way the sunlight glinted off his hair, the easy confidence in his movements. A surprising jolt of attraction shot through her. Bill, her neighbor, the handyman who fixed her dryer, was suddenly, undeniably, attractive. And the way he looked at her, it felt like a secret language, a silent invitation. She had to admit, she was intrigued. And maybe, just maybe, a little bit excited. This unexpected turn of events was certainly interesting. Complications arise. Bill whistled, a low, tuneless sound that vibrated in the small laundry room. He'd been poking around inside the dryer's chassis for a good 5 minutes, flashlight beam dancing over dusty components. Well, Lily, looks like we've got more than just a slipped belt here. My heart sank. I'd been picturing a quick fix, laundry back on track by dinner. Oh? What is it? I asked, trying to sound optimistic. He straightened up, wiping grease on the leg of his jeans. The motor's shot. See these scorch marks? He pointed with the flashlight. A faint, acrid smell, like burnt popcorn, tickled my nose. She's been working overtime, poor thing. Overtime was an understatement. Between my art project's dyeing fabric was murder on appliances and my general aversion to laundromats, the dryer definitely pulled its weight. So what does that mean? Means we need a new motor. He ran a hand through his already tousled hair, leaving a smudge of something dark on his forehead. I might have one in the garage. It's from an older model, but it could work. Let's take a look. It's going to be a tight fit to get this one out, though. He gestured for me to come closer. The laundry room, already cramped, seemed to shrink further as we both peered into the dryer's depths. The smell of dust and stale dryer sheets was almost overwhelming. Bill's shoulder brushed mine as he angled the flashlight. I could feel the heat radiating from his body, a comfortable warmth that chased away the slight chill of the basement. "See that connection there?" he murmured, his voice low and close to my ear. "Tricky to get at." My gaze was fixed on the tangle of wires he was indicating, but my awareness was entirely focused on Bill. The faint scent of earth and sunshine still clung to him from the garden. My cheeks flushed. He started fiddling with a wrench, grunting softly with effort. "This is going to be a pain," he muttered. A screw slipped, clattering against the metal housing. Damn it. Frustration bubbled up in me too. I wanted clean clothes, I wanted to get back to my painting, and I really, really wanted Bill to stop standing so close. It was all too much. "Here," I said, grabbing a pair of pliers from the toolbox. "Let me try." He stepped back, offering me a wry smile. "Be my guest. But I'm warning you, this thing's stubborn." I wedged myself into the small space he'd vacated, contorting my body to reach the stubborn screw. The metal dug into my palm, the sharp edges biting into my skin. "Ouch!" I yelped, dropping the pliers with a clatter. Bill was instantly beside me, his hand gently taking mine. "You okay?" "Let me see." He examined my palm, his touch surprisingly gentle. "Just a little scratch. We should probably call it quits for tonight. I can pick up a new motor tomorrow." Defeated, I nodded. "Yeah, maybe you're right. The laundry could wait." Besides, I needed time to process the confusing swirl of frustration, and dare I admit it, attraction that had taken root in the cramped laundry room. Darkness falls. The insistent hum of the refrigerator sputtered, then died. Lily glanced up from the half-finished sketch of Bill's garden, a prickle of unease dancing across her skin. The overhead light flickered, a frantic strobe against the deepening twilight outside, before plunging the entire house into absolute darkness. A small gasp escaped her lips. "Oh, great." She pushed back from the kitchen table, the wooden legs scraping loudly against the linoleum in the sudden silence. Her hand instinctively reached for the wall, fumbling for the light switch that was now utterly useless. The air, thick with the scent of the rosemary Bill had given her, suddenly felt close and constricting. "Lily? Everything all right over there?" Bill's voice, laced with concern, drifted in from the garden. He must have noticed the abrupt change. "Power outage, I think," she called back, her voice a little shaky. "Just surprised me." She hated admitting to even a sliver of fear. It felt childish. She heard the crunch of gravel as Bill walked towards the back door. "Stay put," he said, his voice closer now. "I've got a flashlight on my phone. Be right there." A moment later, a beam of light cut through the darkness, illuminating her face. Bill stood in the doorway, his brow furrowed with worry. The light cast long, dancing shadows across the kitchen, exaggerating the lines around his eyes and the silver in his hair. He looked rugged and capable, a stark contrast to the slightly flustered mess she felt like inside. "You okay?" He stepped inside, the beam of light sweeping across the room. "Didn't want you tripping over anything." "Fine," she said, perhaps a little too quickly. "Just, not a fan of the dark." A half-truth. It wasn't the darkness itself, but what the darkness amplified, the feeling of being alone, the echo of her own anxieties. Bill nodded, his gaze steady. "I understand. Power's probably out all over. We had some strong gusts of wind earlier." He paused, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Here," he said, holding out his phone. "Take this. I'll check the breaker box. It's probably just a tripped breaker." Lily hesitated, then took the phone, the cool metal a comforting weight in her hand. The flashlight beam danced across the sketch of his garden, highlighting the vibrant greens and blues she had tried to capture. In the artificial light, the image seemed almost hyperreal, more alive than the real thing shrouded in the encroaching night. "Thanks, Bill," she said softly, meeting his gaze. "I appreciate it." He gave her a reassuring smile. "No problem, Lily. Just holler if you need anything." He turned and disappeared into the inky blackness of the hallway, leaving her alone once more, but this time with a small beacon of light to ward off the shadows. A brush of hands. The scent of cut grass clung to Bill as he squeezed past me into the cramped laundry room. He smelled like sunshine and something earthy, a stark contrast to the stale, lint-filled air that usually permeated the space. "Right, let's have a look then," he said, his voice a low rumble that vibrated a little too pleasantly in my chest. He knelt, peering into the back of the dryer. Shadows danced in the confined space, swallowing the details of the tangled mess of vent hose and wires. "Need some light," he muttered, pulling out his phone. The sudden illumination banished the gloom, revealing a thick layer of dust clinging to every surface. "Ugh," I said, wrinkling my nose. "I really need to clean back here more often." Bill chuckled. "Join the club. Mine's probably worse." He ran a hand along the dusty hose, then reached for a stubborn clamp. I instinctively reached out to steady the dryer, and our hands brushed. It was a fleeting contact, barely a graze, but it felt like an electric shock. My breath hitched. The fluorescent light seemed to intensify, highlighting the fine lines around Bill's eyes, the smattering of freckles across his nose. The air crackled. He froze, his fingers still resting on the clamp. His gaze lifted from the dryer's innards and met mine. His eyes, the color of aged oak, held a question, a warmth, something undeniably else. It was a look that lingered, that burrowed past my carefully constructed defenses and settled somewhere deep inside. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drummer in the sudden silence. I forgot about the dust, the broken dryer, the awkwardness of the situation. All that mattered was the intensity of his gaze, the way it made my skin prickle, the way it made me feel seen. He didn't say anything, didn't move. He just looked. And I looked back, caught in the amber depths of his eyes, unable to break the connection. It felt like an eternity, yet probably lasted only a few seconds. Finally, he cleared his throat, the sound rough and jarring in the small room. "Well now," he said, his voice a little husky. "That hose is definitely blocked. No wonder it's not drying properly." He turned his attention back to the dryer, but the air between us remained thick with unspoken possibilities. The brief touch had shattered the casual facade, leaving a charged awareness hanging in the air, a silent acknowledgement of something new and potentially significant. I took a shaky breath and stepped back, suddenly feeling like I needed more space. "So, blocked hose. Fixable." I managed, my voice sounding higher than usual. "Electricity restored." A subtle vibration tickled the air, a phantom pulse beneath the afternoon's stillness. Then, a jump. Lily inhaled sharply, her fingers finding Bill's forearm without conscious thought. Before the nerve signals completed their journey, the fluorescent fixture above the island buzzed, throwing harsh light onto the scene, and obliterating the intimate ambience cast by the beeswax tapers. Bill recoiled, his vision speckled with afterimages. The washing machine's display panel bloomed with neon numbers. The fragile spell they'd unknowingly conjured shattered like spun sugar. He retreated a step, wiping grime from his knuckles onto his denim. "Well, I'll be." Lily experienced a curious blend of liberation and longing. Relief that the familiar order was restored, averting explanations about the romantic lighting. Yet, a sharp pang for the lost shadows, the shared seclusion. She extinguished the candles, the fragrance now carrying a metallic tang instead of gentle warmth. "Think you licked it," she ventured, striving for nonchalance, as if they hadn't been hovering on the precipice of something momentous. Bill's grin flashed, ivory against sun-kissed skin. Only one way to know for sure. He reached for the dryer's portal, a fleeting hesitation before he swung it open. He plunged a hand inside, retrieving a test towel. "Bingo," he announced, hoisting it like a victorious flag. "Good as new. Just a loose connection in the heating element." Clipped it right back in place. Lily observed him, admiring the unstudied competence he possessed with all things mechanical. It was a far cry from her own clumsy attempts at domestic repairs, almost always compounding the initial problem. "You're a savior, Bill." I was truly dreading a trek to the laundrette. He shrugged it off, yet a glimmer in his eyes warmed her from the inside out. "Glad to lend a hand, Lily." "Anytime." He began gathering his tools, the scuffed leather satchel heavy in his grasp. Unspoken sentiments hung thickly in the air, laden with the recent, charged atmosphere. "So?" Lily started, then paused, unsure how to traverse the chasm that seemed to have yawned open between them. "What do I owe you?" Bill halted, his fingers brushing the doorknob. He pivoted back, a playful spark dancing in his gaze. "Payment's been rendered," he quipped, nodding toward the now operational dryer. "However, a coffee on that charming porch of yours wouldn't be unwelcome." Lily's pulse quickened. "I'd like that very much." He beamed, a genuine, full-bodied smile that fanned out into delicate lines around his eyes. Then, before she could second-guess herself, before she could analyze or hesitate or retreat into her customary caution, she acted. She closed the space between them and embraced him. It was a fleeting connection, a spontaneous show of gratitude. Yet, in that instant, pressed against him, she registered the reassuring solidity of his frame, the heat radiating from his body, the lingering aroma of soil and sunshine. He returned the embrace, his arms circling her gently, with perfect pressure. As she stepped back, her cheeks bloomed with color, and her breath hitched. Bill's eyes were tender, brimming with an emotion that weakened her knees. "Thanks again, Bill," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "Anytime, Lily," he replied, his tone equally hushed. He cast one last lingering glance her way before turning and exiting, leaving her alone in the suddenly bright, utterly mundane kitchen. A spark ignites. The scent of freshly turned earth hung heavy in the air, a grounding aroma that usually calmed Lily. Today, though, it only amplified the nervous flutter in her stomach. Bill, kneeling amidst a riot of tomato plants, looked up, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. His eyes, the color of warm honey, met hers, and the familiar, unsettling warmth spread through her. "Everything all right, Lily?" "You seem a little distracted," he said, his voice laced with genuine concern. Distracted? That was an understatement. She was teetering on the edge of a precipice, a dizzying drop into, what exactly? Affection? Attraction? The possibility of something more than friendly chats over the fence. She managed a shaky smile. Just thinking about the dryer. And things. She hated how vague and clumsy she sounded. Bill chuckled, a low rumble that vibrated through her. Dryers have a way of doing that to a person. He stood, brushing dirt from his worn jeans. He took a step closer, and the air crackled between them. Lily's breath hitched. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows, painting the garden in hues of gold and amber. He hesitated, his gaze flickering from her eyes to her mouth and back again. The silence stretched, thick and heavy with unspoken feelings. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the quiet of the garden. She wanted to say something, anything, to break the tension, but the words seemed to have evaporated from her brain. Then, with a sudden, decisive movement, Bill reached out. His hands, calloused and strong, gently cupped her face. The unexpected touch sent a jolt of electricity through her, making her knees weak. He searched her eyes, as if seeking permission, and in that moment, Lily knew she couldn't deny what she felt. She leaned in, just a fraction, her eyes fluttering closed. His lips met hers, tentative at first, then with a growing confidence that mirrored the burgeoning feelings within her. It was a tender kiss, a quiet exploration, a promise of something more. The world seemed to fade away, leaving only the sensation of his soft lips against hers, the earthy scent of the garden, and the frantic beating of her own heart. When they finally broke apart, breathless and slightly dazed, the silence returned, but this time it was different. It was a comfortable silence, filled with understanding and a shared awareness. Wow, Lily breathed, her cheeks flushed. Bill smiled, a genuine, heart-stopping smile that reached his eyes. Yeah, he said softly. Wow. He took a step back, giving her space, but his eyes never left hers. So, where do we go from here? Lily considered the question, the possibilities swirling in her mind. Fear mixed with excitement, doubt with a hesitant hope. I don't know, she admitted. But I think I want to find out.